Good evening, Facebook and YouTube, uh, friends and family. This is Attorney Tyler Kareem. I want to make sure I get my tie up. Oh, boom. This is Attorney Tyler Kareem with you with STEM4US TV, the launch of our inaugural conversations with leaders from across the country who have stories that are really informative and inspirational for our young people. And these stories, while we don't expect that a lot of young people are up this late at night, um, are for the parents and for teachers. These stories are to inform you about the journeys that outstanding individuals have taken in their lives, both the ups and the lows, if you will, so you can inspire your young people, the young people who are your students or your children or the children of your friends and family, so we can generate a community of innovators to help this nation to go to the next level. As we know, I'm here in Washington, D.C., where we've had quite a bit of uh, activity around the last 24 hours concerning not only the election. Some people like to just dismiss it as this a protest against the election, but it's something much, much more. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with our special guest. And our special guest is Daryl Horton, an engineer, a plant manager for a multi-billion-dollar facility that is doing some wonderful work at producing water for our nation's frontline workers and other workers around the country and families. Many of you probably have some of the water that his company and his plant produces right now in front of you. So we're going to talk about Daryl Horton, who he is, Daryl Horton, and where did he begin, and where his journey has taken him, and where he would like to be at the end of that journey. But let me first of all ask you, Daryl, how are you doing, and where are you right now calling from, and how's your family in this crazy pandemic?
So, you know what? I just want to say thank you, Tyler. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. So, to answer your question, I am calling from California, Southern California.
Calling? You're not calling, bro. This is broadcast, brother.
We are
You're on a
broadcasting. You're
live
right.
broadcast, man. You're a TV land. You guys say calling, you
I,
know.
I apologize. I apologize. This is the first. This is a first for me, so it's definitely going to take a bit of getting used to. But we are broadcasting. I am on the West Coast. I'm in Southern California. Rancho Cucamonga is where I live. That's where obviously
What? You're in
I'm
Rancho
at now.
Cucamonga? Get out
I
of here,
am
man.
yes.
My sister is in Rancho Cucamonga. So
Really?
again, Camilla, Terrell, if you're hearing this broadcast, you got one of my boys right down the
That's
street from
right.
you.
That is
I
right. That
visited
is
her
right.
in Rancho Cucamonga. All right.
Oh wow, wow, wow! It's definitely a small world, small world. So yeah, that's where I'm at. My family and I. So my wife, I have a family of three. My wife and I have a 15-year-old daughter. My wife and I, we've been married a little over 18 years. So yeah, I mean, we've been here for 8 years. Relocated from the Midwest, relocated to this area in 2012 from Omaha, Nebraska. So yeah,
Excellent, man. And and
yeah.
um and, and your family has been okay in this pandemic.
Family has been okay. Family has been okay in the pandemic. Believe it or not, this is a hot spot, but I want to say, we've been very fortunate. My daughter, she's been doing homeschool. She finished out her eighth grade year at home, and she started her freshman year in high school at home, and she is still going to school at home. So schools haven't opened here. And fortunately, as far as work is concerned, you know, I am a part of the essential workforce. What you said, I mean, I manufacture water, bottled water for Niagara Bottling. And, we have been taking our safety serious, our employee safety seriously. And even with all of the constraints that we've had in terms of, government constraints, Still think that we've gone the extra mile by providing tests for our team members, and also providing quarantine if they have been exposed. We allow them to quarantine at home, and that's with pay. So we've tried to take care of folks that way as well.
That's wonderful, man. Well, look, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of your story,
Oh,
for you to give us your kind of journey. And one of the beautiful things about this conversation is that, it's kind of a two-sided, kind of marketplace. On the one hand, we are looking forward to, again, you informing parents and educators about your story that they can then go and hopefully inspire and motivate the students who are in their circle. But in addition, we hope that you will kind of impart and allow us to be a recorded history for your family. Maybe your granddaughter or your daughter
right.
or your great granddaughter may come upon this video through the archives of YouTube and say, hey, that's my granddad, that's my great granddad, that's
Right.
my dad. So
Right.
with that in mind, why don't we again cede the floor to you and give you an opportunity to kind of give us your story, Daryl, from where did you start and
Oh,
how did you
sure.
get to where you are?
Sure. So, I mean, without going into a lot of detail in terms of youth and childhood, I grew up in the Midwest. So I'm originally from Kansas City, Kansas. I was born and raised. My parents are still there. And, I went to Sumner Academy High School. And I think that was really the foundation for, what I've been able to accomplish and achieve now. So, that high school was a magnet school, and it started in the eighth grade. So it went from eighth grade to senior year. And the only way you could enter the school was to test in, and you entered in as an eighth grader, and you carried that same class with you when you graduated. So I graduated with a relatively small class. It was 124 of us, and the school, it was Sumner Academy of Arts and Sciences. So we were exposed to a lot of different things, and I think that is the foundation that probably sparked my thirst for learning. Um, for an example, as an eighth grader at Sumner, we actually we it was required that we took Latin. So those were the types of influences that I had, and it was interesting. I don't think I realized this through high school, and then through the Air Force Academy where you and I met, Tyler. I didn't realize that I was actually in a really, really, really unique setting where all of the African American males that I was around that were my friends. I mean, and when I say friends, I mean literally, the stories that we all share when we grow up. Spending the night over people's houses, playing basketball with each other. Riding your bikes together. I mean, all of these stories. I was just surrounded by like-minded young African American males that were trying to do something, and I think that coupled with the high school experience is kind of what got me fueled for learning. So from high school, I go to the Air Force Academy, and I spend a year at the prep school before I'm an actual cadet on the Hill. Um, at that particular time, that's where you and I met, Tyler. And once again, I find myself surrounded by a lot of just really, really, really bright and intelligent and driven, purpose-driven young African American men. And it's one of those scenarios where I believe in that particular time. So we're talking about the mid to late 80s, 86, 87. I mean, things were a little bit different. And as we've alluded to in some of the political climate today, a lot hasn't changed. But, I think there were things that were definitely stacked against us at the academy. It wasn't things weren't readily conducive for us to succeed. I'll just put it that way. And as a result, I struggled. And it was probably one of the first times well, I think it was one of the first times, it was the first time that I ever struggled academically. I struggled because I felt as though I didn't have a voice. And some of that's by design. I mean, it is the military, right? So, I mean, there's a part of your individualism that needs to be checked. But I personally struggle with that. So,
And
um,
Daryl,
go
this is
ahead.
actually let me kind of dig in, because I think this is something a lot of people, young people, don't realize, is that uh, they are going to experience significant challenges while pursuing whatever their dream is. And so let me just kind of ask a couple things. And before I
Sure.
do that, let me encourage everybody who's checking this out on our YouTube channel. Let me encourage you to, hit the like button, smack that like button, as they like to say, and subscribe. Leave any questions that you have in our comments. We'll make sure that we get to those questions and try to answer them. Um, so let me ask you, first of all, what was your dream in high school? A, and then
Okay.
how was going to the academy a part of you pursuing that dream? All right.
So this is going to sound very, very corny, but I can own it and I can admit it. I was always a sci-fi fan. So between being a kid in 1977 and seeing Star Wars, and then being somewhere, I think like my sophomore, junior year, could even been my senior year, seeing, I think it was Iron Eagle and Top Gun. I wanted to either be an astronaut or a pilot. And I did have an uncle that was a colonel in the Air Force, and retired colonel. And I had an opportunity. It was before, definitely before my eighth grade year. I think it was somewhere between my sixth and seventh grade. I got a chance to go to the Air Force Academy, and I mean, I was enamored. I saw the planes on the terrazzo. Looking at Mitchell Hall, all of those things. Just, I mean, and like I said, coupled with, my little nerdiness, geekness. That's that's what led me to the academy.
And for people who don't know, paint a picture, of how it was for you coming. You grew up in St. Louis, right?
Kansas City.
Kansas City. It's funny. I always get Kansas City confused with St. Louis. You know what I mean? They're both in Missouri, though, right?
Well, so the interesting fact is you have a Kansas City, Missouri, which is the bigger city, but then you also have Kansas City, Kansas. And I actually grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. But it doesn't
Oh, so
matter.
you're from Kansas. You're not even from
I'm
Missouri.
No, I'm not even from Missouri. I am
That's
from
great. So
Kansas.
you
I'm
from
legit.
Kansas City, Kansas. All right, cool.
Yes, sir.
So you
Yes,
come
sir.
from Kansas City, Kansas,
Hmm.
and you go from there to the academy.
Hmm.
What was the kind of transition like? Were the people that you met at the academy like the people you had gone to school with, or what was that transition like?
So you know what? It was interesting because it was one of the first opportunities for me to mix up with people from all over the country. My world had been the Midwest. So to your point, I knew Kansas and I knew Missouri, but I didn't really know. I knew a little bit of Iowa, maybe Nebraska, from doing some track trips when I was in high school, but nothing really broader than that. So, when I get to the academy, I got, these cats from Maryland, Baltimore, from the coast. There's dudes from Cali, from down south, Texas, and it's this potpourri of experiences that my head was on a swivel a little bit. But then as you start to talk to people, once you get beyond, oh wow, check it out, he's got an East Coast accent. Once you get beyond those nuances that seem to make us different, when you start to peel the layers back, you understand that the people at their core are essentially the same. And you start to, kind of vibe with the people that you would normally vibe with, the people that share your similar interests. So when I got to the prep school, one of my, best, well, I mean, still is a bestie, is Jeff Harrison, and we shared a love of music, and we like to dance at the time. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stuff that Jeff and I did, but that was my partner, and there was another guy, Adrian Culpepper. So Adrian was from Atlanta, and Jeff was from Maryland, Upper Marlboro. So we were all from three different places, but we developed a kinship because we all shared similar interests.
And again, people might not realize again the whole idea of how intense the Air Force Academy is. Why don't you paint a picture, brother, of how intense that experience was in terms of the
Sure.
we saw some of the pictures up there before. How was that picture for you, Daryl?
So that picture was the picture. The best way I could describe it was, I mean, I was always in conflict. So I was in conflict of whether I thought I wanted to whether I wanted to stay. You saw, in those pictures, people, what was the word for it? Being trained. And at that particular time in my life, that wasn't really what I was trying to. I was not trying to be about that. And to no fault of the academy, that's what the academy is designed to do. But conforming just was not something. It's not a place where I was at that particular time. So it was very difficult for me. And then there was also an element of, I there was an element of there was a racial element as well. And I mean, I felt that some of us were trained harder than others, and I felt like I was on that. I felt like I was on that short end of the stick. So as a result of that, I chose a different path, and it's not a path that I would recommend. I chose a path of rebellion. So, for any rule that I felt like I could get away with, I was going to try to break it. So, what I want to make sure that people understand in this process is that got me in trouble. That got me in insurmountable trouble at the academy. It got me in so much trouble at the academy that, I mean, the academy and I decided mutually to part ways. And, Tyler, the reason why I want to make sure that people, especially young people and parents of young people, understand that is that, sometimes as much as we think we're equipped to handle things, we're not. And it's okay to step back and hit pause, reset, and, pick yourself back up, reevaluate what your priorities are, and then readdress and reattack those priorities.
Sorry, and you mentioned in terms of the way you attacked the priorities. Um, can you explain what it was like when you left the academy and how you actually picked yourself up? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I picked myself up," But a lot of people who are in the process of picking themselves up are searching for answers. Like, how do you go
Right.
about doing that? You know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure,
Can you
sure, sure,
explain and
sure.
go into the weeds of exactly how did you went from again, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Where did
Hmm.
you go, and how did you actually get there?
Sure. So, you know what? To be perfectly honest, and if I'm being candid, was I, there was a lot of shame behind leaving. Um, there because it was it was the first time that I've ever embarked on anything that I did not finish. So there was some sense of failure, and you know, yeah, there was. So from there, I decided that I was going to go to Kansas State University. So I left the Air Force Academy, and I believe it was the summer of '89 or '90. I can't remember which. And I immediately went to Kansas State the fall of that next semester. Um, so how did I pick myself up? There's I think it's important for people to understand that you have to have a network of support. No matter if you ever see anybody that's gained any level of success in anything that they've ever done, they've never achieved that success in a vacuum. I think that's the most important thing that if that's one of the most important things that I'd like to share is that, there's always a network of people, or there's a network of support that many successful people have, and they know how to tap that network for resources when they need course corrections, if you will. So it was important for me to have positive individuals in my life to keep encouraging me when that self doubt crept in. I think the other thing that really so that was the external help that was needed, but I think um, the internal piece that got me over that hump, Talib, was really understanding that when you do a debrief, a post mortem of a situation that you have not prevailed in, I think it's important that we all step back and analyze those things. You can I think you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. So what was critical for me was to look myself in the mirror, own the mistakes that I made, um, and then put a plan forward so that I didn't make those same mistakes again. So one is leaning on that external network and support group, and then the next thing is really looking within, doing some self evaluation, owning the things that you need to own, and making a commitment to yourself that you will never allow yourself to go down those paths um, under your own will. Yeah, I think you're on mute, Taliban. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So the
That's all right.
question that I was saying, going back to the question is, how did that again that background coming from the academy? What steps did you take leaving, and where did you go, and then where did you land? Can you go
Okay.
into that
So
detail?
like I said, I transferred to Kansas State University, and then I graduated with a degree in industrial engineering. From there, I started my career. Well, and actually, when I was at K State, I actually interned for Pepsi Cola for 3 consecutive summers. Once I graduated, I started working full time for Pepsi in the capacity of, I think it was a product availability supervisor. Then I was promoted to a production supervisor. So I started my career in Omaha, Nebraska, worked there for 2 years, moved to Pepsi, moved me to Denver, Colorado, worked there for 3 years. So got my teeth cut in the industry with Pepsi for the first 5 years of my career. Um, from there, moved to Chicagoland area, and I was uh, um, distribution manager, safety director for Clorox's food division. We manufactured Hidden Valley Ranch and Casey Masterpiece barbecue sauce. Did a
So hold
stint
on.
there.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
if I can interject, it sounds to me that even though you left the academy and you left the Air Force, you
Hmm.
seem to have still been having almost kind of a career that's similar to many Air Force officers in terms of being
Relocation.
deployed, at one
Exactly.
base, moving to another base,
Yep.
in 2 years. It seems that a lot of people who are perhaps checking us out, and for all those brothers and sisters who went to the academy with us, what's up? We are glad to have you. Don't hesitate to like this conversation on our YouTube or our Facebook and leave a comment, and we'll definitely make sure that Daryl gets that chance to respond to your comment or question. But again, going back, you seem to have a career that was almost parallel to the career that you would have had you again stayed at the academy. Am I wrong?
You know what? That is a amazing observation, Tyler. I've often said, for someone who did not want to be in the military, I've certainly moved around the country as if I were. Now, the only thing that I haven't done is I have never worked abroad. But as far as the opportunities that I've experienced and some of the companies that I've worked for, I have had an opportunity to see the country.
And also you've been essentially a white collar worker, right, in a kind of a blue and white
Blue,
collar environment. That's
that is
almost
correct.
akin to being in the military, where you have these kind of two
Officers
tiers
and
of
enlisted.
maybe break that down, because a lot of people don't understand that dynamic, the dynamic
Sure.
between the non-commissioned officer community and the officer community on the one hand, in terms of military, and the white collar and blue collar, workers on the other hand. Can you, talk a little bit about that?
So the officer versus NCO in the military is analogous to your salaried versus your hourly team member employee in the private or civilian sector. Um, Essentially, and I can't speak for the military, so I will only talk specifically to the work environment. Um, it's the difference between being a salaried employee, a manager, supervisor of people, versus being a hourly team member is the difference between literally as an hourly team member punching the clock and getting paid by the hour versus having a salary, and your time. You're not getting paid for your time. You're getting paid for your mind, if that makes any sense.
Mm, that makes a lot of sense, brother. And it seems to me also that the kind of almost perks or the deference seems to be analogous too. Like in the military, as you know, the folks who are non-commissioned officers have to salute, even the most junior,
Junior.
officer. So if you again have a person who's been in the military for 20 or 30 years, and then there's a person who graduates from the Air Force Academy, the person who again is in the military for 30 years has to literally salute and call sir or ma'am that
Yeah.
young, 20-year-old, or maybe even some cases 19-year-old or 21-year-old who's just come out the Air Force Academy. Is that
It,
kind of the
it,
same relationship that you all have there in the so-called white collar or salary careers versus the hourly or blue collar careers, Daryl?
it is absolutely the same. And when I say absolutely the same, I mean absolutely the same. So I'll give you a scenario, and you just I'll give you I will give you the scenario that applies to what you just described. So when I graduated from Kansas State, I was 23 years old, and I was immediately given a crew in the warehouse to supervise. Some of those guys were old enough to be my dad and or my father. So now you're in this position where you're having to manage adults. I mean, and when I say adults, I mean people that could be your they are well your seniors. So that is exactly the scenario.
And and so, what lessons do you have, Daryl, for young people coming out of the work or coming out of school, first of all, and not knowing exactly where which direction they want to go in? Do they want to actually spend the time and get a degree, or do they want to go straight into the workforce and make some money, which in their minds they could probably make more money than they can if they get a degree and they don't have to take on the debt. And I see the realities and the benefits, quite frankly, of that analysis. I mean, how do you fall down on that conversation?
So unless you are doing something that is completely on your own, I mean, unless you are in a position where you can innovate technology, um, if you are going to go to work for someone else without having any type of education, that is what you will do for the rest of your life. Um, I strongly encourage young people to think twice about, I just want to make some money now. I strongly encourage people to, and this is for parents as well, encourage their children to go to school. There's a number of reasons for that. I mean, there's all kinds of development benefits from a social standpoint, all of those things. But from a career perspective, um, I don't, from a fulfillment. I think at some point, um, what there's a certain level of fulfillment in what you do. And I think it would be very difficult, in particular in my industry, manufacturing, where some of the tasks that are required to mass produce products can be mundane. I would question the level of fulfillment that one would have if they had an opportunity to do something else, but they chose this. So my counsel would always be to look at things in terms of the long run versus the short term gain. And the long run would be the investment in going to school. It doesn't have to be a bachelor's education. It could even be trade school, but I believe the more training you receive, the more, it's like anything else, the more prepared you are, the better the opportunities will be that come your way.
And so let me ask you this. How about for a lot of young people and even parents who, again, are seeing the high cost of tuition and they think, well, maybe what we can do is have you go ahead and get that job and then go to school at night and acquire those degrees, maybe not as soon as you might acquire them if you took on the debt, but still acquire them. What do you think about that perspective?
I think however it needs to happen, it needs to happen. I think it can be done that way. I think it's more difficult to do that way. But if that's where you are at from a financial standpoint, then once again, I would highly encourage it, and I would encourage I would encourage you to focus on the school and not the work, because the work that you do is to get you through the school. It shouldn't be the, I mean, that's what you should focus on. That aspect of that particular job is to finance the school. So I would concentrate more on the school than the work, because you don't plan on doing, I mean, you shouldn't be planning on doing that for the long term. Does that make
And
sense?
so, what do you think about your career in industrial engineering? Your degree was in industrial engineering. Is that
Hmm.
still a valuable degree to have? Has the industry changed since you started it? How is manufacturing, changed? Is it cleaner? A lot of people are pretty pissed off that a lot of our manufacturing jobs have been offshore to either
Hmm.
Mexico or China. Um,
Right.
what are your thoughts about that, girl?
So to be honest, it's those jobs have gone away because of the cost of labor, and that's, I mean, we can talk about, those things, but essentially, as far as is manufacturing, I think that for my particular industry, as it relates to industrial engineering, still very relevant. Industrial engineering is essentially, the engineering and the science of people and machines. It's the how can we do more with less. It's about productivity. So I think all of those things still fall in the industrial engineering wheelhouse. When you talk about Lean, Six Sigma, all of those things were principles that that are once again in an IE's wheelhouse. So I think that's very applicable. And I also think any of the engineering fields in as far as manufacturing is applicable as well, because it's essentially about problem solving, right? So I mean, anyone that has that engineering background typically has developed an ability to solve problems, and that's really what our industry looks for.
And let me ask you, Daryl, in terms of your perspective about where the future of your industry is, especially in COVID. Can you? So I have two questions actually as we conclude.
Sure.
First of all, give me your scariest moment in the work that you do, and where was it? So give me your scariest moment, and then tell me about how dirty, your dirtiest moment, if you will, because people don't realize I've worked in a manufacturing facility similar to yourself, but different. I was working as a Ford engineer at the when I came out of college at Howard, at the Ford Motor Company plant in not Troy, Michigan. I'm now blanking. I know my boys will be pissed off at me that I forgot the name of our plant, but it was in Michigan off of 96, and I'm gonna remember that it was a transmission. It was
Okay.
the Livonia. The Livonia transmission plant. Okay, please
Okay.
forgive me, brother.
That's all right.
The
You got it.
Livonia transmission plant in Livonia, Michigan, and it was a huge facility. Probably had thousands of employees there,
Hmm.
but it was not as clean as your facility looks today. Why don't you give me your most dirty moment and then your cleanest moment in the business that you've done?
So I think the most dirty moment is just the nature of the business itself was in the flour milling industry. So I mean, you're bringing in rail cars of wheat. You're essentially blending, siloing that wheat in an elevator, blending it to make your different protein blends that make the flours that the different types of flours that you want to make. And sometimes if you have a roll stand, which is what actually grinds the wheat, and it grinds the wheat and takes the endosperm out, which makes the flour. If you have a roll stand that chokes, you have to unchoke that, And when you unchoke that, I mean, you just get covered in all kinds of flour, wheat. Well, and it's not even flour because it's not flour yet. So it's more like whole wheat flour because you've got bran, you've got endosperm, you've got all the parts of the wheat kernel, the wheat berry all over you. So, and
Hold
it's
on,
uncomfortable. It itches.
As my understanding, you actually worked in an animal processing plant. Now, I have been told. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have been told, and I've worked with again
Mm-hmm.
cars, but I have been told that there is no manufacturing plant on the face of the earth that is as dirty and as smelly as a again an animal processing plant. Can you correct
So,
me if I'm wrong?
here's what I will tell you. When I was at Tyson, we did manufacture pork and beef jerky, but we were not a rendering plant. So I bought ham eyes and I bought beef knuckles. So I didn't have to worry about rendering plants. But I do hear facilities are pretty bad. Never had any experience working in one though.
Okay, so now we've gone from the bad
Mhm.
and the tell me about the scary. What is the scariest situation that you've had as an engineer or a plant manager or a supervisor, and how did you handle that situation?
Well, I mean, from a safety standpoint, whenever you're in manufacturing, I think for me, the biggest, the biggest, the thing that keeps me up at night more than anything uh, is the safety of our team members. Unfortunately, I've actually seen amputations. I've seen losses of digits, and those things aren't comfortable because ultimately those team members are you're responsible for. And the biggest thing for me is I want everybody to go home in the same condition that they came to work.
You
If
said
you think about
you seen amputation, meaning you actually saw the amputation take place, or you saw after the amputation took place.
No, I actually saw after the amputation took place, but because it was like really, really close to after, I got a chance to see the blood and I mean, all of the things before it was cleaned up. So, yeah, I mean, I've been as closer to it than I would want to be.
And so now, tell me about the clean facilities that maybe you're working in now, and what's been the best uh, facility that you've ever been in and managed.
You know what? It's interesting. So, I've because I've done this, and I mean, it's pretty much been my career. I've had one corporate role where I've actually traveled to different facilities and been in a support role. Um, the facilities start to blend together. I think what I want to make sure that people understand, especially with manufacturing, is when you're in a plant, it's like a family. I think it's the people. So when I think about the best places that I've worked, it's not necessarily the process that sticks out. It's not necessarily the product that sticks out. It's the people and the relationships that you make that stick out. Um, I'm a firm believer in that aspect of work. It's about team, and I believe if you create the right relationships, there's no work that's insurmountable. So I've had a number of good places that I've been a part of, and it's all been because of the absolute fantastic people that I've been around.
And let me ask you, where do you see yourself? I like to say that I'm actually about 5 years. My mom's senior, she died when she was 47. So I'm
Wow.
on my way to being 52. So
Hmm.
4 plus years over my mom. And my dad, he died when he was 60. So I'm
Wow.
about, a good nine
8
years
years. Yeah.
short of him, 8 or 9 years short of him. So I'm in between that time.
Hmm.
So if I was gonna say, how old did your parents live? Or they maybe still living? Uh,
You
are they
know,
still living?
I'm blessed to have both my parents.
Okay.
My father's 84 and my mother's 81.
Okay. Well, then let
So
me ask you, where do you see
yeah.
yourself in the next 30 years? Then, see, I only have about 10 years myself.
No,
You got
no,
about 30 years on you. You know what I mean?
you're gonna
So,
break that trend. You go we know you are.
all
But
right. Well,
you know,
I'm not holding up any hope for it, but you tell me, brother, where do you think you're going to be? Where do you like to see yourself in the next 30 years?
well, when it's all said and done, 30 years from now, I mean, I'll be 82, so I'm going to be sitting back somewhere retired, enjoying my family, and hopefully there'll be grandkids somewhere in there, and I and sitting back reflecting on some of the positive things that have happened. So that's where I see myself at 82. As far as from a career perspective, I still, I feel like, I'm winding down the third quarter. If we were, in a football or basketball game, I feel like winding down the third quarter. And I'm ready to go in for the home stretch, go hard, all out. And from a career standpoint, I know I'll be, leading somebody's manufacturing organization, when it's all said and done.
So, if you were to meet the Daryl Horton at the Air Force Academy that I met him, and I would like to be able to show that picture, and I may have it up in a moment of you
You
and
better not.
I during those days. But if you were to meet that Daryl Horton, what advice would you have for him, and how would you talk to him?
Man, you know what? The first thing I do is I would put my arms around myself, and I give myself a big hug, and I tell myself, you're all right. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing I would do is I would tell myself patience. One of the things that I think I've learned over time is life is truly a journey, Tyler. And I believe that when I was younger, at least this is true for me. Um, I was in a hurry to get to the next thing, and so much so that I didn't pay enough attention to where I was because I had my eyes somewhere else. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give myself is, have a little patience. Um, don't be so critical of others, or maybe I'll take that back. If you're going to be critical of others, be as critical of yourself as you are of others. And I think those would be the two biggest things that I would tell me at a young age.
And I'm actually gonna I'm actually gonna pull that up, brother, because it's just so funny to see how we looked at those days. And it's a good reflection because you were a smooth brother, man. I just had to say that,
Were,
man. You were one
well,
of the smoothest cats, man, that
it's
I've ever met, man. You know what I mean? With
it's
your
in the
with
rear
your
view.
part in your head there. You know what I mean?
It is in the
you know,
rear view
you
mirror,
you
man.
you were smooth, bro. I was like, man, I couldn't hang with you, brother, because you were just too
Oh,
smooth.
whatever,
You know what I mean?
whatever.
You I know
Don't
you
listen to him.
you just a smooth cat, bro. You and Todd Money, you know what I mean, and some of the other brothers that we had. Even Ali Washington,
Yeah.
who's
Oh
one
yeah.
of our boys,
Oh yeah.
and
Yep.
Maurice, as you can see right there,
Yep.
man.
Oh yeah.
These cats
Exactly.
that were y'all was totally smooth, And me and Stacy, I mean, both of us, I felt like we were kind of, on the outs, you know what I mean? And,
Nope.
and this brother,
Nope.
hopefully we'll have him on our conversation one of these days to talk about his journey. But
Now
I mean,
that's who
you
you
cats,
really need to talk to.
I would tell you, man, you cats were straight up, man. I'm telling you, y'all was smooth, brother. That's all I got to say. One of the things I remember the most is y'all was some
When you
smooth cats.
So listen to him when he says were and was, because you know age has a way of evening
Nah,
everything out, right?
not at all. But in that conclusion, man, and it's been really a great conversation with you, Daryl. And again, um, let me just give you three kind of ending questions. One
Sure.
is, what is the what's the biggest lesson, uh, you know, in an abbreviated way, that you can take away from your journey so far?
Oh man, you know what? I think the biggest lesson is if you think you are going to go through this life without any hiccups, without experiencing any pitfalls, with the road just being, paved with no potholes, rethink, rethink that scenario, because it's not going to happen that way. So be prepared to stumble, be prepared to trip, be prepared to fall. Those things will happen. It's how you react and respond when those things happen. That's what determines that's what determines where you're going to go and what your destiny is going to be. Always know that you know for every moment that you fall, it's not about falling, it's about getting back up and being able to pick yourself back up. So I think that's one.
So, second of all, let me ask you, what have you learned about marriage that you might be able to impart to a young Daryl Horton of 19 or 20 years old?
So
And I'll
hopefully,
throw in
and
fatherhood at the same time to that conversation.
so you know what I think as times change, people and ideas evolve, right? So if you look at the '80s when we were young men, '80s, early '90s, I don't know that the regard and the respect that I don't know that it was. I still think there was a lot of foolishness that that men were allowed to perpetrate. And when you grow up in that environment, you think that's the norm. So I think honestly, I cringe to look at myself back then, and I just not very proud of some of those things. So I think the biggest lesson that I would learn is or try to make sure that I teach any myself or any young men moving forward is that you know it's just because someone is the opposite sex. I mean that there's no control there, and I think there has to be that element of respect that's established for women, and that has to happen early on for young men. And that's something that I think we desperately need to teach our young men growing up is to respect the women that are around them. Everyone has a mother, and that there's no one that's more important in your life than your mom. So, I think those are the lessons that I think we should all be striving to teach our young men. And as far as marriage is concerned, it's just it's more of an offshoot of that. It's a partnership, man. You enter into that union together, and that's the key. It's about together. I don't think one individual dominates any individual, and I think the biggest lesson for both people in a marriage to understand is compromise. You know, it's all about it's all about compromise and respect.
And then in conclusion, what would you convey to the young Daryl about your relationship with the Almighty, and particularly the issues around compromise and how to avoid um, that compromise through the sacrifice and recognizing that you may uh, people may not see you, but the Almighty sees you. What would you say to that, Daryl, or on that note?
Well, you know what? I think to be mindful, to be mindful of one, the company that you keep. I think that always helps you stay on the straight and narrow. But two, no matter what, you never, you might get by, but you never get away. And that's why we all have consciences. I mean, we know when we do things that aren't pleasing in the Almighty sight. And so I think for me, it never was too terribly reckless. I mean, there were some things that I did that like I said, I'm not very proud of, but always knowing that you know you what you do is not only a reflection or is not only a reflection of you, but it's a reflection of those that raised you, that love you. So always be mindful of that, and always try to put the Lord first in the things that you do and acknowledge Him, and He'll lead and direct your path.
Well, brother, this has been an amazing conversation. I can say that in these minutes that we spent together, I've learned more about you than I've known in the past 30 years. 30 plus years. Um, Going
You
on
know,
40 years, which is
it's
crazy.
been.
I didn't even see myself as 40, brother. I'm telling
Tell me about
it's
it,
like
man. Tell me
I
about it.
like, man, those guys are old, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well,
I
I
never
think
thought about somebody over the 30.
that's the surreal thing, Tyler, is that when you and I were when we were running together, man. I mean, we couldn't see this far out. But like I go back to what I said about that the company that you keep, though, man. I look at you, I look at all of your awards, I look at all your plaques. I mean, I know what you're doing, but there never was a doubt in my mind around any of us that were together. I didn't know what we would be doing, but I did know each and every one of us would be successful in our own right. I mean, that's the one thing that, like I said, if I can encourage parents, pay attention to who your kids hang with. I mean, make sure that they are with good people. Be nosy. Don't don't let them dictate to you. You dictate to them, and they will thank you for it. Trust me, I know. I've lived it, and that's the way I'm trying to raise my daughter. I mean, yeah, be involved in your child's life. Be involved in your child's life.
And you mentioned even earlier to me how you had to take not only a pay cut, but you had to take an L and lose employment in order to make sure that you looked out for your daughter. You want to share that the closing point before we conclude?
Sure. So yeah, and this is another put your trust in the Lord moment as well. But when I was at Tyson, so I worked from Tyson from 18 to 20, or excuse me, well, yeah, 18 to 20. Essentially,
From
Tyson
2018 to 2020.
from 2018, exactly. So essentially, Tyson divested our business, sold it to another competitor, ended up shutting our manufacturing location down. Um, Tyson offered me relocation to a few different cities, but long and short, I looked at it. My daughter's a freshman in high school, and I wanted her to have that same experience that I had. It was important for me to keep her whole. So once again, I mean, as a husband, as a father, as a parent, it's not about me. It's a greater purpose. So I chose to stay here in Southern California so she could be whole, and the Lord blessed me with Niagara. So that's where I'm at now.
Well, brother, we've had a great conversation, and it's really been amazing to go on your journey. And that's what these conversations are about. And so we hope that everybody who's listened to this conversation and seen the journey that you have been on will subscribe to this channel, will like the conversation, will comment, and we hope to get back in response to you forever every comment or question that you leave. But again, this is what STEM for us is all about. We are about bringing to our community, particularly this year in 2021, conversations from the front line of the cyber and STEM and business and education worlds. We are going to be bringing you, hopefully, every week a new leader, highlighting that leader's journey and hopefully giving you some talking points that you can pass on to the young people in your life. Again, if you'd like to get more involved with what we're doing, don't hesitate to check us out at STEM4US.org. Of course, we're on both Twitter and on Instagram. And again, we're looking for other leaders who are out there. Maybe you might have a story that you'd like to tell. And if you so, definitely hit us up. You can reach me at email Talib, Talib at STEM4US.org. And we look forward to, hopefully having you on as our next leader in cyber, our leader in STEM, and leader in education. And again, Daryl Horton, brother, this has been an honor. I can't wait to
Always.
hopefully after the COVID, maybe come and visit you in Rancho Cucamonga. My sister,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got family here, man.
Come and hang out. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Looking for. I didn't even know. Right. In fact, my brother-in-law is also out there, but we got like family. You know what I mean? We got on both sides. So we gotta definitely come out and spend some time with you. All right.
I love it, man. I love it. Anytime. You're always welcome. And it was my pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care, family.
Bye-bye.